How's it going, everyone? Today I'm going to give a breakdown of my matches and results of my Indianapolis regionals. This was my first regionals ever. First off, Indy was very fun. It was awesome seeing all the Pokemon stuff together. There was the Pokemon TCG, obviously, and then there was VGC was there and Go was there. It was cool seeing all the people in one spot. I would say it's probably about 5,000 to 6,000 people that were there. The vendors were very fun. It was a very impressive collection of cards that I was able to see there. I was definitely able to make some upgrades to my deck. So overall, it was very fun. Can't wait to do it again. Do another one, kind of compare the two in a different spot, because I know the next one I'll probably be doing will either be Peoria, or if it's in Peoria or if it's in St. Louis, I'll be definitely going to one of those. So that'll probably be my next one. So I can't wait to go to that one and compare the two and hopefully get better results as well. As a side note, I did record this before, but while editing, I had come to the conclusion that there is absolutely no one out there that would want to see my face for the whole video. So I hope you guys enjoy some of the footage from some of my old matches back when I was first coming back to Pokemon TCG. Definitely simpler times back then. Very fun times kind of getting started with the deck and everything. So I hope you guys enjoy some of the old footage. All right, so enough of that. I know you're here for the results of the tournament. First off, I know I promised gameplay of the deck leading up to the regionals, but I just can't do it. I can't go back and watch that footage. I'm still pretty pissed off at the deck. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. So let me go over the breakdown of how my matches went, and you guys can see how bad it was for me. So round one was the mirror match, and I'm very confident with the mirror match. I've been playing Charizard for 8 months. I've done a ton of mirror matches, even leading up to the tournament. Me and Bolt were running the same deck, so I did a bunch of mirror matches against him. And I won the majority of those, so I was pretty confident with the deck and going up against another Charizard. So I was pretty confident, and I felt it was going to be a good way to bring me into the tournament and kind of get my nerves, because I knew I was going to be nervous and everything like that, since it's my very first match. So I felt it was going to be a good warm-up, or not warm-up match, but a good introductory match going up against the mirror, something that I felt very confident in. So game one, I start out with Lumineon in my hand, Roxanne, 2 Ionos, 2 Rare Candies, and 1 Zard. I went second and drew Defiance, used Iono and got 3 Energy, 1 Buddy, 1 Turo, 1 Boss. So as you can see, I started with a bad hand and then Iono'd into a bad hand. So I end up using the Buddy for a Charmander and a Pidgey. Cleffa was prized, or I would have definitely have gotten Cleffa since I had the energy, so I'd have been able to switch out Lumineon and then put Cleffa in the active spot. But fortunately, Cleffa was prized. And then obviously my opponent went first, so his next turn, he evolved his Pidgey into a Pidgeot and then his Charmander into a Charizard. So he was already set up and ready to go. And first turn, I mean, he knocks out Lumineon, so he's already up 2 prize cards. And as you know by my hand, there's not really much I can do. So I'm praying for an Arven or a Pidgeot or a Charizard or anything that can help me get Pidgeot or Charizard. So I end up drawing another Boss, which ended up being that was it, because obviously he took out my Charmander next turn, and that was GG. So there was nothing I could do in the first game. So I'm expecting, since my first game was pretty bad and the hands were pretty bad, both of them, because obviously with Iono I was able to redraw into a whole new hand. I was hoping that game 2 would be a little bit more enjoyable. It wouldn't be so fast, because I mean, obviously that match went by real fast. So game 2, I started out with 2 Charmanders, 1 Pidgey, 2 Rare Candies, 1 Choice Belt, 1 Super Rod, and 1 Turo. So I'm looking at this hand, and it's the perfect setup because I got 2 Charmanders, so even if he takes out my Charmanders, I'm good. I got Pidgey, I got 2 Rare Candies. The only thing I'm missing is I'm missing an Ultra Ball. I'm missing an Arven to be able to get an Ultra Ball. I'm missing something that would help me be able to get a Pidgeot. Once I get a Pidgeot, I can get going and get my Charmanders out, or Charmanders and the Charizards, and I'd be good. Unfortunately, my opponent also started out with pretty much the same thing. Of course, I went second again. So then on his second turn, he went and got Pidgeot, Charizard again, and then he kept knocking out my Charmanders. My first draw on my first turn was a Pidgey, which obviously, as you know, for that hand, I don't need another Pidgey. KO's my Mander. Then I drew a Forest Seal Stone. Once I drew the Forest Seal Stone, well, obviously I have nothing I can use Forest Seal Stone for because I either need Lumineon or Rotom. So I didn't have either one, and I had no way of getting either one. So, of course, that's a dead draw. And then he, of course, KOs my Pidgey, and then I drew another boss. So that was it. First match, first 2 games, really bad hands, very short. So I was pretty much done quickly. I was not happy with it, but I knew that with the 2 bad hands in that bad game, I was like, you know what? It's just one match. I know Bolt was talking about it. Me and him were talking back and forth, and we were like, all we needed to do was go 6-2-1, and we can make day 2. So I'm like, first loss, get it out the way. Hopefully that's it. It's a bad hand. It's 2 bad hands, 3 bad hands if you count the eye. I'm not gonna see this all day. I'm gonna have a good day. It's just one match. That's it. I'm still pretty positive. Talking to Bolt about it because he lost his first match as well. And we're both pretty positive and everything like that. So I go into round 2. As expected, my hand went well. Started out with Charmander and Pidgeot. I started out with a rare candy, and I started out with Charizard and Pidgey in my hand. So I was able to do Charizard and Pidgey turn 2. The problem was 3 of my Charmanders were prized, and I'm going up against Lost Tina. As you know, if Charizard goes down because of Tina's special ability, I didn't have any way of bringing him up. Lucky for me that my opponent in the first match didn't have Tina. He had Sableye and Cramorant. So I didn't have to worry about that as far as the Charizard getting knocked out. But with 3 Charmanders prized, I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was terrified. I was wondering, if Charizard went out that turn, there was no way I was bringing him back. Other than I would have probably been able to Super Rod, but at that point, my opponent knows I don't have any Charmanders left. He's probably taking out my Pidgeot, and then that's it. I'm not gonna be able to do anything. But lucky for me, he never got the Tina in time to where I wouldn't be able to take care of it. So I was able to knock out his Cram. I got lucky, got Charmander. Knock out his Sableye, got lucky, got Charmander. And then I was able to, I think, knock out Tina eventually, and I was able to get the last Charmander. So by the time he could even get going, I already had 3 Charizards on the bench, or 2 Charizards on the bench, 1 in the active, and Pidgeot. And my Charizard hadn't taken much damage. So the first match went really well and finished it pretty quickly. Game 2 of the Lost Tina match, I got Pidgeot and Zard up on turn 4. Game 2 started out a little slower with the Lost Tina match. I got Pidgeot and Zard up on turn 4, which at the time my opponent hadn't gotten going yet. So I was able to systematically knock out a couple of his 1 prizers, which was, I think at the time was Cramorant and Sableye, because I was able to knock out the attackers. I didn't really care about Comfey at the time. I just wanted to get the attackers out because they were doing a little bit of damage to Charizard. Then he was able to get a Corliss, which he ended up getting 2 Tinas, and he was able to put both of them on the bench. And at the time, because he only had 1 knockout, my Charizard was only able to do 210 damage. My Choice Belt was prized, so there was no way I could pull that from my deck to try to knock out one of the Tinas and at least make it to where my opponent would sweat a little bit, where he wouldn't have both Tinas. He eventually evolved Giratina into Giratina V-Star, and then he also had a couple Mirage Gates, so he was able to not only evolve it, but then get energy on his Giratina. So that made it to where he was able to attack. So he ended up prime catching up my Pidgeot, and then he moved up his V-Star. And of course, Giratina V-Star can attack for 280 on his regular attack, so he knocked out my Pidgeot. Time I still had the prize card lead. I was up 4-3. I was pretty happy about that. Like, now my Charizard could go a little bit stronger, but unfortunately without the choice, but I still couldn't knock out that Tina. But my next turn, I hit Tina for 270, but of course his next turn he used his insta kill on Zard, so now the prize cards are, he's got 2, I got 3, but I was able to knock out his Giratina with Heat Tackle from Charmander. So I only needed 1 prize card to do it, and he brought out a second Cram and took out my Charmander, which made it 1-1. So it comes down to 1 turn. I had 1 Charmander on my bench. All I needed was a rare candy because I had Charizard in my hand. All I needed was a rare candy. I was able to, during that time, also get my second Pidgeot up and going. So it wasn't like I was praying for the rare candy. All I had to do was use Pidgeot's quick search ability and go get my rare candy. And GG's, I would get my first win. Unfortunately, when I looked at my deck early on, I thought I saw 4 rare candies when I was going through looking for like my Charmanders and my Clefas and stuff like that. I thought I saw 4 rare candies. I miscounted. I only had 3, and the one that was left was my one prize card. So even if I would have drawn it in any of my other prize cards, I would have still won. But unfortunately, it was the only prize card left. It was the only rare candy that I had left. And once I didn't realize it until that turn. And of course, what I could do, the only thing I could do was evolve it into Charmeleon. But of course, my opponent now saw that that was the only thing I had. He bossed up my Charmeleon and knocked it out with Cram, and that was it. So that we ended up going in tied, where I won game 1, he won game 2. I was not happy about that I didn't see my prize cards, because if I would have noticed that my rare candy was prized, I would have started building up Charmeleon, Charizard early on, because I knew that that would have had to been a route that I would eventually would have had to take. So I was not happy about it, but I was like, that's a mistake that I will definitely learn from and make sure that I'm paying attention to how many cards are in, especially rare candies. Rare candies, Charmanders, Pidgeys, Cleffa, Rotom. Like, I'm looking for those cards. I'm making sure that I don't make that mistake again. But it definitely cost me game 2 and pretty much cost me the round on that one, because game 3 started, and of course with Charmander and Giratina V taking so long, those Lost Tina decks taking so long to come up. As soon as we got into game 3, me and my opponent took a couple turns, and then time ended, and at that point, neither one of us could finish off the other. I was fully set up, and my opponent was not. I had Pidgeot, I had 2 Charizards, and I had already started taking prize cards, but he only had 1 prizers up. He couldn't take any of mine. I was set up with the choice belt, so even if he would have brought a Tina to the bench, I was going to boss the Tina up and take it out. But at that time, he had only 1 prizers on his bench. He only had the 3 Comfies. He only had 1 Cram. I'd already taken out the Sableye, and he had Radiant Greninja. I was down to 5 prize cards. He was still at 6. I would have had to have gotten 5 prize cards in 2 turns, because once time is called, you get 2 turns. Each opponent gets 2 turns, and then after that, it's pretty much a tie. So there was no way I could take 5 prize cards. There was no way he could take 6 prize cards. So we ended up in a tie on that one. So for my second match, I went with a tie. So at this point, I'm 0-1-1. Not happy with the 0-1-1, because I felt like I should have won that one if I would have paid attention to my rare candies, but it happens. It's not like Pokemon TCG Live, where the UI sets it up to where it's so pretty and you get to know, like, you go through your deck and it shows you the rare candy, and it shows you a number underneath, like 3 or 4 or whatever you got in your deck. So you know how many rare candies you got. I didn't have that in Pokemon TCG Live, and even though I had been playing in person, I still were making mistakes on prize mapping my prize cards, especially with rare candies and stuff like that. So I was pretty much kicking myself, but it was fine. It was a tie. I was happy with it. Round 3, went up against a Chi and Pow player. Game 1, completely ran over the Chi and Pow player. It was probably the fastest I'd ever beaten a Chi and Pow player. The Pow player was very unlucky on their prize cards. Both of their 2 of their Frigibacks was prize, and the 1 was on the bench, and I knew when they went in to get their stuff that they were trying to get 2 Frigibacks, and I could kind of tell by my opponent's face that they didn't have it, so I knew to boss up that 1 Frigibax quickly before it became a Baxcalibur, and then I knew that they were done. So that match went by really fast. My opponent had nothing for me, so we went right into match 2. Match 2 was the direct opposite of match 1, where my opponent had everything prized and I got going quickly. It was a direct opposite. My opponent got 2 Bibarels and 2 Baxcaliburs up very quickly. I think it was turn 2. If not, it was their turn 3, where they fully had 2 Baxcaliburs and 2 Bibarels, and then a Gianpao and the Yakta. I stood absolutely no chance in that round 2, in that game 2. They obliterated me. I mean, they could empty out their hand and then Bibarel up, empty out their hand again and Bibarel up again, and Baxcalibur was just feeding energy to Chien-Pao, and there was nothing. There was nothing. So the first 2 rounds went really fast. So at this point, we're going into game 3, and this one was a completely even. It was completely back and forth. We got down to where we were tied, two prize cards left apiece. I had maneuvered myself to where only my Charizard was the last thing on the field, and I had Boss in my hand. Or no, I had Roxanne, and I had Boss in my hand after the Roxanne, so I was completely lucky because I had removed Pidgeot, because at this point, I knew that if they had Boss or had some way of getting up Pidgeot, it was going to be an easier knockout for Chien-Pao instead of Charizard. So I was banking on that if they're gonna beat me, they have to get 6 energy to beat me. There's none of this 5 energy or anything like that. Like, you gotta beat me with 6 energy. So I only had Charizard in the active. I didn't have anything on my bench. We were both tied with 2 prize cards left apiece. I had just Roxanne, and I had Roxanne into my hand, Boss, so I had gotten lucky there. And then they only had 2 cards left in their hand. So they were completely like demoralized. I could tell by their face that they knew that it was pretty much over, that they didn't get what they needed. All it took was 1 turn, because their Chien-Pao did have 2 energy on it. And if they would have retreated out their Chien-Pao, I knew that they didn't have anything, and I knew I was going to be able to boss up that Chien-Pao and then knock it out and win the game. Felt like that was what was going to happen. And then the most godly draw happened, where my opponent drew Superior Energy Retrieval. And of course, they got the 2 cards in their hand, so they're able to discard those 2 cards, and then of course get the 4 energy. And with the 2 energy on Chien-Pao, and then of course with Baxcalibur in the active, they were able to get the 6 energy to knock out Charizard. If that, and it wasn't like they had like 5 or 6 cards left in their deck. They had like 10, 15 cards left in their deck. So it was crazy. It was crazy. It was a crazy draw. I couldn't believe it. I could see the moment when they drew the card, got the Superior, their face lit up, which of course then my face just darkened, and yep, they played Superior, got the knockout. So at that point, now I'm 0-2-1. At this point, in order for me to make day 2, I had to win out. I absolutely had to win out, and I just couldn't believe my luck. So now I cost myself a win with not counting my rare candies, and then the luckiest, maybe not luckiest, but an unfortunate draw by my opponent made it to where they won. So instead of being 2-1, I was now 0-2-1. So going into round 4, I went up against Arceus V-Star. And yeah, that deck is super fast. I couldn't believe how fast that, I mean, they turned to Arceus V-Star both games, which Judgment gives them the ability to be able to draw 2 cards, any 2 cards from their deck. I'm still looking at Pidgey and Charmanders, and they've got their bench fully up and their attackers, because of V-Star's ability of being able to put energy on people, was able to get their attackers up. So they mopped the floor with me. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I didn't stand a chance in that one. There was no chance. They mopped the floor with me so fast that I went shopping, and that's when I upgraded some cards in my deck, some trainer cards in my deck, and then bought a couple more Pokemon cards. And I didn't obviously can't add them to my deck, so I had them in my thing. But yeah, I went shopping after that, because I was like, yeah, it's time for me to do something to get my mind off of that one, because that was a beatdown. So round 5 comes up, and it's a Charizard mirror match again. I'm not feeling as confident on this one, because obviously after the first match left a bad taste in my mouth. But in that one, game 1, I had the perfect hand, and once I slapped down Pidgeot and Charizard turn 2, my opponent scooped. They just say, you know what? First game's yours. GG's. I'm good. So game 2 and 3 was about the same. Game 2, I had 1 Pidgey, 3 Charmanders, 3 Fire Energy, and 1 Mist Energy. I drew back-to-back rare candies and then drew a switch. Obviously, game 2, based off of that, I was heat tackling the whole time. I did try to use Pidgey's Call of the Family, but there was nothing in my deck that I could bring out. Cleffa was prized, Bidoof was prized, Rotom was prized. Lumineon wasn't prized, but there was no reason in bringing Lumineon to the field, because 1, I wouldn't have been able to use his ability, and 2, that I gave my opponent an easy 2 prizer to go with. So I was trying to drag it out as long as possible to try to hope and see something would happen, but yeah, nope. I pretty much heat tackled everything. hoping for Charizard, a Pidgeot, Arven, Ultra Ball, even an INO, a Roxanne. I was praying hard. And then game 3, I started out with 2 Pidgeys, 2 Charmanders, a Switch, a Mist, a Turo, and then I drew a second Turo. And then I used Pidgey's Call to Family again and realized that Bidoof, Cleffa, Rotom, and Lumineon was prized this time. So not only was it prized in game 2, but then all 4 of them were prized in game 3. At that point, I blacked out. My opponent eventually got Pidgeot and Charizard out. I never saw Pidgeot or Charizard. I got no rare candies. I didn't get anything. I didn't even see a supporter card that turn other than Turo. So, and I saw I remember seeing a bunch of energies. I think I like I said, I blacked out. I don't even know what happened in game 3 after that point. After I saw what was prized and there was no way I could draw anything else. So now I'm sitting at 0-4-1. I'm talking to Bolt and I'm like, at this point, I really wish I didn't have Switch in my hand. I wish Switch was either an Arven or an INO because that would have made things a little bit better. I'm really regretting my missed decision because I'm thinking that I was probably going to have to go up against a bunch of TM de-evolutions, but not a single one. So Mist was pretty much a dead energy card in my hand. So I'm like, I really wish Mist was an INO and Switch was an Arven because it would have been better. I've seen those cards a lot in my matches and they just been useful. And I haven't seen Arven or INO that much. So I really wish I had switched them out. But at this point, I knew that I probably made a mistake on that, on bringing those 2 in. But you know what? You live and you learn. So round 6 went up against Lost Tina again, but this one was a unique one. They ran Iron Valiant in this one as well. I was surprised by that, but it ended up working out for them because they ended up using it. Game 1, my opponent got Radiant Greninja going, but I saw that he was bringing him up, so I heard him slap Manaphy on my bench, which I was lucky, and then he was able to get Sableye going. Unfortunately, with Sableye getting up, I needed Jirachi. Jirachi was prized. At that point, he was using his Sableye to knock out my baby Pokemon, my Charmanders, my Pidgeys. He was pretty much picking them apart. And there was nothing I could do about it because I couldn't get them to evolve and get Charizard to attack to try to get Jirachi. So I pretty much struggled in game 1. So he took game 1. Game 2, completely rolled my opponent. Turn 2 Pidgeot, turn 2 Zard. Manaphy was in my opening hand, so I was able to protect against Radiant Greninja. And it was pretty much just a masterclass of what my deck could do. I pretty much just destroyed him in game 2. So now we get to game 3. And the uniqueness of my opponent's deck came into play. As I couldn't stop Iron Valiant because Iron Valiant, neither Jirachi nor Manaphy stops that damage. And what he did is he used Iron Valiant's damage to get rid of Jirachi. And then he used Sableye to get rid of Manaphy, and then he used Radiant Greninja to get rid of everything else. I never saw Charizard, and Pidgeot got massacred by Tina, because of course Tina can one-shot Pidgeot either way it goes. There went that match. So at this point, I am 0-5-1. I'm completely pissed off at the deck, because I've now seen way too many bad hands, way too much stuff. There's too many matches, rounds, games where I didn't get a chance to play. And it was really pissing me off that I wasn't getting a chance to play. But pride on the line, because I knew day 2 was long gone. But pride on the line, I was not walking out of there without getting a win. To this point, I'm telling Bolt, I'm like, hey, I am not leaving here until I get a win or go 0-8-1. So, but I'm not leaving until then. Because I know a lot of my friends that were there, they had dropped already because they were like, hey, I'm already 1-3. I'm done. So they dropped a while ago. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get this win. And then round 7 hit. And I went against Snorlax Stall. At this point, I felt like the universe was telling me, you're about to go 0-8-1. Because there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. At this point, after I saw the Snorlax block come out, my mind, I've lost it. I'm cussing out my deck in my brain. I'm cussing myself out for building a bad deck in my brain. I'm mad that I brought in Jirachi and Manaphy and Switch and Mist. I'm wondering why I ever dropped Entei, because Entei would have helped in some matches where I would have been able to get early battles in. I wish I would have had 3 Arvens. I don't know why I'm not seeing rare candies, and I got 4 of them. I don't know why I haven't seen an Ultra Ball in ages. I got 4 of those in my deck. Unless I'm Pidgeotting out something, I'm not seeing the Ultra Balls. So I'm like, do I even want to play this match? Because everyone knows that Charizard versus Snorlax is an absolute bad matchup for Charizard, and it's not something I wanted to do. And I'm sitting there, and I can tell probably my opponent's probably looking at me, and I look completely dejected. But you know what? I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I might as well play it. There's no reason not to play it. I've already lost 5 matches as is. What's the point of going 0-6? Because at this point, I'm probably gonna get. I'm gonna get one somewhere, but it's not gonna be this one. My hands start out with Pidgey, Charmander, and Rotom, which is good. I had both Churro and Charizard in the fire, and I drew a fire energy. So I was lucky on that. When my opponent Eeried me, I didn't have no rare candies or anything to take out of my hand. I got a kick out of that one because I was laughing to myself when he Eeried me, because I'm like, haha, you what are you gonna take? You want my Churro, you want my energy, you want my Charizard? Oh, actually, you're looking at my Pidgeot and my Charizard, so you know that they're gonna get here, because there's nothing you can do to stop me from getting it other than Miss Fortune Sister, which did end up hitting later, but other than Miss Fortune Sister, but you're not doing anything else. And then I top decked Arvin my next turn. So of course, with the Pidgeot and the Zard in my hand, I was able to Arvin, Rare Candy, and then with Rotom, I was able to get Force Seal. So I was able to get Pidgeot, Charizard, and then I started knocking out stuff. And of course, once you start Hero Caping, I do damage, and then I get rid of the Hero's Cape with Lost Vacuum. And then after that, they would kind of play around with, lucky for me, Mimikyu was prize. They didn't have Mimikyu first for game 1. If he'd had Mimikyu, it probably would have went a little bit different in game 1. But I realized when they went in to go get something, I think they were looking for Mimikyu, and I could tell by their face they didn't have Mimikyu. So they brought back, I can't remember what they brought back. They brought back something that I was like, oh, they don't got Mimikyu. So I was able to take out the Snorlaxes at that point and pretty much one prize up through the Snorlaxes, because of course with Mimikyu being prize and without Peony being in the deck, they can't go back, they can't go in and get it. So I was able to just pick apart their deck. Eventually I think they ended up getting upset and they threw out Rotom on their bench, which was a huge mistake, and I was able to get a 2 prizer off of that. So that made that match go easier. Game 1, I'm actually up 1-0 on Snorlax. I can't believe it. And it was fast too. So even if he stalls me out for game 2, I'm up 1-0. I'm more than likely getting this win, because Snorlax Charizard, I mean, if he plays it the long game and I play the long game, we're going to time out. But game 2 starts, and again, Pidgeot, Charizard, turn 2 so quick. Unfortunately, he started out with Mimikyu, but my opponent kept sticking stuff down behind the Mimikyu. So what I kept doing is I kept bossing up whatever he was sticking on his bench, and I'd prime catcher out the Mimikyu. So I kept one-shotting or knocking down each Pokemon each time, and he kept refilling his bench, which I wasn't sure what the game plan on that, because I swear if I'm playing Snorlax stall and I got Mimikyu and I know I'm going up against a Charizard deck, probably only doing Mimikyu until I see Charmeleon. I did have Charmeleon in the background waiting just in case I needed to use him for Mimikyu. It never got to that point. This time, Pal Pad actually worked out really well for me, because I was able to use my 2 bosses, use my prime catcher, and then I was able to get the bosses back into the deck. And they made the mistake again of putting Rotom on the bench again. So I was able to do Rotom and then do 3 Snorlaxes, and I can't remember the other card. But I was able to knock out I was able to get my 6 prize cards. Again, I got lucky, because when he hit with Eerie, all I had in my hand was a bunch of energy and a bunch of crappy supporter cards when he hit the first turn that he hit it. And then his 2 Misfortune Sisters, only one hit a rare candy. The other 2 hit absolutely, or the other one hit absolutely nothing. And then I only lost 1 rare candy off of the Misfortune Sisters. That was it. I got lucky. I got lucky that my hands were so bad that Eerie couldn't hit them. And I got lucky that my deck was so bad that when Misfortune Sisters hit those cards, it didn't get anything good. So that he actually, I think, helped me out. I was lucky that I didn't lose Pal Pad in game 2 or game 1. And I was lucky that I didn't lose too many rare candies in game 1. Game 2, at that point, I just knew all I needed was 2 rare candies, 1 for Pidgeot, 1 for Charizard, and that was it. So I actually won against Snorlax Doll. So I was surprised there. So I was 1-5-1. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep going, finish it off. I only got 2 more matches to go. There's no reason to go home now, even though I really wanted to, or even though I had said I wanted to. I didn't really want to. I had said I was going to once I got my 1 win. But I was like, you know what? There's 2 matches left. This is great practice. And, I mean, let's be honest. I was feeling pretty good after the Snorlax match because it was a match I wasn't supposed to win. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into my next one. And then round 8 happened. And I got a mirror match again. Another Charizard EX. I'm dominating game 1. I'm feeling good. My opponent's struggling until he hits TM de-evolution. Now, at this point in game 1, I had overextended. I'm not going to deny, I had overextended. I had already used up 3 of my rare candies. I think I had already tossed Charmeleon to the discard pile because I was like, I don't need them. I'm good. Things are going well. We're about to finish this person off game 1, move on to game 2, GG's. Yeah, he TM de-evolved me, and I was shocked. I only had 1 rare candy left. Lucky for me, I had already kind of built up a hand, so I was able to Arven into the rare candy and get my Charizard back. But then I made the most boneheaded move I could possibly make. I took out the wrong Charizard. I forgot that he had put a Defiance band on a Charizard, and I hadn't paid attention. I lost track of it. I got down to where I had 2 prize cards left. He had 2 prize cards left, but it was his turn, and he brought up the Charizard. And when I saw the Defiance band on it and he attacked me with it, I was completely kicking myself because I had a different play I could have done, but I didn't do it because I was trying to get to the 2 prize cards, and then I was going to finish him next turn. And I did not pay attention to that Defiance fan Charizard, or I would have been able to take it out because it already had damage on it. So I would have been able to take it out with my Charizard, but I was like, I'm not worried about it because that Charizard is only going to be able to do 300 damage, and my Charizard is fully healthy, so there's nothing he's going to be able to do. Until when he moved it up and I saw the Defiance band, I was like, I don't know how I missed that. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know how I didn't pay attention to it. I was like, yeah. So, of course, he knocked me out with the Defiance fan Charizard. Won game 1. So, game 2, knowing my opponent has TM Devo, I'm looking for, as soon as Pidgeot gets evolved, I'm looking for my Mist Energy. I'm like, finally, Mist Energy is going to be used for in this match. Finally. And the one match it would have been useful in, it was prized. I had to go without Mist Energy. And of course, he TM Devo me, but this time around, I was prepared. I only got up 1 Pidgeot. I got up my Bidoof to Bibarel, and I got up 1 Charizard. And I already had Charmeleon on the bench. I had only used up 2 rare candies, and I had 2 rare candies available. And I actually had both of them in my hand because I knew it was coming. I mean, once my opponent played his hand with the TMD, the Devo, I knew it was coming, especially because since I couldn't stop it with the freaking Mist Energy because the Mist Energy was prized, and I hadn't gotten it at that point, even with all the prize cards that I had gotten. So I was ready for it. Again, get down to where I have 2 prize cards left, and he has 3. And again, I made the same exact mistake as I did in game 1. I didn't realize, or I did realize that he had Defiance Band, but I didn't pay attention to it or didn't fully comprehend it. Or I don't know what I was doing at that point. At this point, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm ready to go. I already had pretty bad matches, and I'm already kicking myself from the mistake from the game 1. And he whips out the Charizard, and he one-shots my Charizard again. And I'm looking down at the Charizard again and all, like, I can't believe I just let a Defiance Band Charizard do this to me again. But lucky for me, he still had a prize card left. I had already had another Charizard up, so I just, with him pushing his prize cards down to 1, of course, now my Charizard can do 330 damage. So I just wiped out his Charizard, and I won game 2. So game 2 is now over. We're now 1-1 going into game 3. And immediately, as soon as game 3 starts, time is called. So again, we're at a point to where neither one of us, we're both at 6 prize cards. We're just now drawing our opening hand. we both decide we're not going to play through the extra time or anything like that. We're just going to take the draw. It wasn't worth it. So took the draw, went 1-5-2. At this point, I know I'm at my limit. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm ready to go and get something to eat because I brought a snack in, like one of those meal bars, and ate it midway through. But, I mean, it's almost 9 o'clock at this point. I've been there since 7 and only had the meal bar. I'm like, you know what? This is a good time for me to drop. So I end up dropping. Both end up giving me a hard time about it, but I'm like, dude, I'm tired and I'm hungry. And my day 2 was out of the question after match number 4. So there was no point in dragging it out and torturing myself even more, especially when I started making mistakes, stupid mistakes on my own. And I dropped. So I ended the day 1-5-2. I had fun. I enjoyed it, but I do wish that my deck was built better. I do wish that I would have prepped better, I guess. I'm not really sure if, yeah, I mean, there's always more prep. I could have done better with my preparation. It's not like I was perfect with it. With that being said, I can't wait for my next regional. I can't wait to do it again. It was definitely fun. I will definitely prep better, play more. I've definitely been playing a lot more on TCG Live, getting my new deck up and going. Still Charizard's EX, but I went back to Entei. I'm going to make Entei work. I hated how it was working after Battle VIP Pass left, but now that I've been playing the deck again with Entei, I realized that it wasn't the fact that Battle VIP Pass was left. I just wasn't playing it right. I have my combos in mind from the beginning, and I wasn't adapting to the times, and I wasn't adapting to my hands, and I wasn't adapting to the game. Now I need to be more adaptive in my games and not just think, oh, I'm going to pull off this fantastic combo every time, because every match you're not going to be able to get this fantastic combo. You're going to need to be able to figure out other ways of doing it. And the reason why I added Entei back, Entei inactive allows me to draw cards. He also gives me another Force Seal target to do, because there was quite a few matches where Rotom and Lumineon were prized, and yeah, if they're prized and you hit a Forest Seal Stone, yeah, it's worked. So I'm definitely doing better prep. Definitely made some changes to my deck. Dropped Switch, dropped Mist. They were terrible. So I definitely dropped quite a few cards and added in some more draw cards and kind of looking at things to come. I know that there's going to be a new set that drops soon. So my deck for the next regional is this deck that I'm using now is going to be nowhere near what it's going to be for the next regional, because there's going to be new cards and new sets. It's going to just turn the meta upside down and everything. So we'll see how it goes, but hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will definitely bring you some gameplay videos, lots of them coming up. We'll see about Charizard. I definitely will be bringing you Charizard videos. I will definitely be bringing you some other decks that I've been playing to try to learn the game more and try to get more strategies going and kind of deviate from Charizard EX, because right now, as you guys know from my channel, I only played Charizard EX and I've only played Snorlax, and then I got this goofy Chien-Pao deck that I'm running that is pretty trash. That I'm definitely going to try to build on that deck as well, but I definitely need to expand my horizons in Pokemon TCG, play some Lost Tina, play some Chien-Pao, play some new Miraidon, play the Ancients, play the Futures, just play a bunch of decks, just get my hands wet, get dirty, get down to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.